Well, I am joined by Derek Pando. Thank you for joining us on the Pulling Focus podcast. We're really excited to have you.
Yeah, I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, and this is going to be a great conversation. A space that we haven't really had too many guests within the realm, particularly dealing with children. And so really excited about that, a really unique type of company. Would love to just hear a little bit more about you and your background, and then we'll jump into Beeloo.
Sure, yeah. Derek Pando. I've been a corporate kind of marketer my whole career at software companies. And so I'm a first-time entrepreneur, but I think was probably most relevant for my particular business is I also have 4 kids, and they were a lot of the inspiration for the business. So I've got 4 kids under the age of 8. Yeah, I'm excited to tell you more about Beeloo.
Sure, yeah. So let's jump in just to the overall description of what it is and how you would essentially lay out where you've been and where the company is right now.
Yeah, so I mean, the inspiration for the company started when I was working from home and my kids would come up to me and say, "Hey, Dad, can you print off a coloring page?" And instead of being like annoyed that they were interrupting me constantly, I was actually really excited because they weren't asking for screen time. And for a lot of parents like myself, screen time is a constant struggle where you got to keep your kids engaged, but you know the negative health impact of screen time on kids is well known. Too much screen time. Some screen time's fine, obviously. And so I thought, hey, this is great. They're asking for something that's not screen time, and I realized it was because it replicated a lot of what is attractive about screen time. It's on demand, and you have lots of options. And so that is what started Beeloo. I thought, hey, how can I make this even easier for parents to print off stuff for their kids to use? So instead of, at dinner time, you are wrapping up work, you got to go make dinner, but the kids are, maybe looking for something to do. You can, instead of saying, hey, I'm going to turn on the TV while we watch or while I cook dinner, you can hand them some printable activities. So that's what we are. We are a marketplace of tens of thousands of printable activities that are fun and engaging for kids that you can print off on demand. And that's how we started.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty common experience for parents of trying to manage screen time. And I'm not a parent, but it seems like that's complicated because there's things that you need to do, like make dinner or work. Yeah. But there's also the question of like your kids being entertained.
Totally. Yeah. And, as I was starting the company, I interviewed a bunch of parents and asked them, and you see some common times like that parents need to have their kids engaged, but they, because they have to do other things. And a lot of times they're really good. It's not so they can like go lounge at the pool. I mean, it's so that you gave them made dinner example, so they can work, so they can take care of another child, so they can help a sick child. I mean, the list kind of goes on. And so we see ourselves as providing like another arrow in the quiver, like another alternative that parents can turn to. Now, my kid plays the Switch and he watches TV, but what we try to do is less by more often reaching for other engaging things with Beeloo and other things that are not just my company. But yeah, for the parent, technology's changed so fast, and it's created a lot of opportunities, but also, like always, we can over-index on using a technology so that it stops. It's not working for you anymore. It's hurting you, or it's not creating the outcomes you want, even though it may be really easy and fun.
What have been some of the biggest objections you've heard from potential customers or parents about Beeloo specifically?
Well, I always hear about printers.
Yeah, I was thinking that might be it.
Yeah. So some people are like, my printer never works. And yeah, that can be a barrier. People sometimes say, well, I don't have a printer. And if you don't, in the U.S., you're actually a minority because like 73% of U.S. households have printers. In fact, the pandemic kind of changed the trajectory where before it was starting to kind of go down a little bit, the amount of homes that had printers. But the pandemic, more and more people have printers. And if you have kids, you're even more likely to have a printer. But the other thing I say too is and that I see is people use the printers at work very often. When I check our web analytics, I'll be like, oh, someone's from Amazon's office is printing something out. Someone's
Cool.
from use. I
Sure.
can see some of the organizations through our analytics tool that are using it, and definitely see a lot of Beeloo users printing stuff off in a variety of different locations. But yeah, printer is usually the first thing that people say of like. I don't know if that'd work. I have trouble with my printer. I'm out of ink. I'm out of paper. But when it comes to like actual preventing people from using Beeloo, it's not really significant.
That makes sense. And is the goal for the parent to choose? I believe one of the options is like a pack or like a
Yes.
booklet. Is the goal for the parent to just pick things out that they think that their kid would enjoy, or is the platform more aimed at, the kid sees these things and is able to select them and print them off too?
Yeah, everything that we've built on our website is geared towards the parents to engage directly, not the kids. But we tried to build it in a way that kids are funny. They'll come to you and they'll be like, God, man, I love maze. I want to do like 20 mazes, and if you're a parent, like going and finding even 20 mazes on Google image search on the fly is actually kind of challenging.
Yeah.
But that's where we excel, right? Because we've used automation and AI to create thousands and thousands of different mazes. So if they say, I want, 15 dragon mazes, we got you, and the parent can go on and, we have different ways that you can interface with our software. One is kind of a typical, I can filter by what I want and the ages and the types of crafts. I can click and then it puts it together in a packet. But then we recently also launched our AI wizard where you can tell it in like a natural language. So this would be good for a parent that they don't want to get into the weeds, and you can just say, hey, create a 20-page activity packet for a kid that loves space that's 7 years old, and it'll create it for them on the fly, and then they can print it out.
That makes sense. Yeah, one of the things we here love is telling stories, and we feel like stories are some of the best ways to connect with people. I'm curious, at the stage Beeloo is in, are there any unique stories that you have heard either firsthand or from someone else of how the platform has helped a parent? I don't know if there's any stories that were kind of unexpected or anything along those lines.
Yeah, there's been a ton of unexpected.
Yeah.
I think a couple that have been most interesting. One is, everything that's on Beeloo is focused on fun and engagement, or to engage kids. So it's things like a color by number craft or a coloring page or a maze. So we thought when we built our product, and we have a freemium model so people can use it for free, that it was for parents. But very quickly, a lot of teachers and educators and other caregivers, we realized were using the platform. And my sister-in-law is a second grade teacher. So I asked her, I was like, wait, like this is just all fun stuff. Like why are teachers using this? Shows how kind of ignorant I was. Ed tech has not been my background.
Yeah.
And my sister-in-law said, no, this is, as a teacher, you have something that's called fast finishers, where you got 20 kids in your class, 5 of them are going to finish 15 minutes before everyone else on every assignment. And so most elementary school teachers have things that they try to give the kids that are engaging and that have some educational outcomes. Because even like a word search or a word scramble or a crossword, you're practicing reading, writing skills. Sure. But it's not explicitly like, oh, this maps to, our lesson on, something that is part of the official curriculum. And so that was I think that was kind of my first surprise, is that how often educators use that. And then you add in, we have a lot of themes that are around holidays. Sure. And you add in class parties, you add in Fun Friday, you add in a day with a substitute, or you have some downtime for whatever reason. And there's a ton of use cases where teachers are using our platform. But then the second one that has been most surprising to me is, nursing homes, retired communities have downloaded a lot of our products, and as I've engaged with some of these users, I found out that it's because a lot of these printable activities like a crossword or a word search are helping people maintain, their cognitive abilities. And then as you get into, later stages of life, that becomes more and more important of like, hey, I need to practice this muscle. And so, and for me, that's great. I mean, we are a mission-driven company. Our mission was to help parents and teachers, but to help those that need to, maintain their, mental sharpness is an absolute wonderful use case that we're excited about for Beeloo.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I saw that there were like Sudoku puzzles on.
Yeah.
And I was like, I like those.
Okay,
I was like, oh, that's cool.
I
And
should have brought you some.
yeah,
You should have told me.
I'll print some out.
Okay.
Only if I can do like a dragon Sudoku or something like that.
There's a dragon Sudoku.
Okay, cool.
Lots of theme Sudokus.
It makes sense when I hear it. I would have never thought that it would have a use case for retirement homes, but it makes sense. And I'm sure having it on physical paper has some added benefit versus handing a person in a retirement home an iPad and then doing Sudoku there. There's also like, issues where what if they swipe out of it and they don't know how to get back to the app and
if you're
charging it and
if you're not familiar with technology or a lot of times your eyesight starts to go and so it can be tough to look at like a bright screen. That's been a segment that we've been pleasantly surprised. And that's the beauty of my background has been in mostly B2B companies that have a B2C element as well. So prior to this, I worked at Zoom. And then prior to that, I worked at LinkedIn, which are both companies that monetize on a business to business, scale, but have a free component that their users use. And so that has made it fun because I remember experiencing the same thing at both those companies where when you have a B2C company or you have a free version of your product, you don't know how they're going to use it, right? Like when you're just selling like B2B, you're selling for a very, very specific use case and you know who you're selling to and you know who's buying it. Whereas, almost every day I'm looking at the analytics trying to think, why'd they make it like that?
Yeah.
And supplementing that with surveys and customer interviews, I've been able to, find out about some of these other use cases.
Yeah. And I've asked this question probably 8 or 9 times to different guests. But I think everyone's answers have been unique and interesting. But what advice would you give to somebody either in your position or at a large company, no matter the size of the organization, who wants to understand their users better or listen to their users? What advice would you give for how to do that and how to do that well?
Well, I feel like I need advice on this, so maybe I need to go back and watch the rest of your rest of your episodes because it's been a challenge. I remember when we started. I remember thinking, once we have 1,000 users on our platform, that's definitely not my family, definitely not my. I don't have that many friends. I don't have that many family, and that's to me that was like that's critical mass where all I need to do now is listen to them. And I can build an incredible business by just being a really good, customer-driven entrepreneur. And I hate to disappoint all those out there. I think the bar is higher than 1,000 users because people are, as we started nearing 1,000 users, we send out email surveys. We would try to contact users directly and ask if we could interview them. And it has been a lot harder than I thought to extract a lot of those insights. I think it's been really helpful to just implement really solid analytics tools so that you can just look to see what they're doing.
Yeah.
And that we probably gained the most insight from that of like, well, we see that our Juneteenth coloring page is number 1. So like we know, we can extrapolate like things about what content people are consuming, what paths they're following.
Yeah.
Even something like looking at someone's email address, it's like, well, that's, asmith@k12.org. It's like, okay, we know that's a school. We can, we can make some, draw some conclusions from that. So I think really good analytics, and then also just being persistent. You know, we sent several surveys, no response. We tweaked it, offered some incentives. We changed the incentives, and then with one of our surveys, we actually got a good response rate and we got good data. The other thing I'd say, so I think it just implement really good analytics, especially if it's something like software where you know that's possible. Even for example, we track what people search on our site, and so that's created a feedback loop where we saw this is a real example of people are searching in springtime flowers. I'm like, oh, we don't have a flower theme, and so we built a flower theme and flower coloring pages and flower mazes, and so that has been a really positive feedback loop because we can now see what people are searching and where our gaps are, and then adjust our content. But then we can also make the product better because we saw people were searching answer key. And on every printable that we have on the bottom right-hand corner is a QR code where if you scan it, you can get the answer key on your phone. So if you're a parent and it's like, I don't want to try to figure out this crossword, like you can just scan it. But we realized that people weren't seeing it, or and part of the reason why is like this is a little bit of a like technology forward way of integrating you know, worksheets with a website. Most worksheets don't have QR codes that take you to the response or to the solution. So then we adapted our site so that if you type in answer key, we have a little reminder that says, just so you know, there's a QR code, and scan it. And as soon as we implemented that, we could watch people, you know, take that action. Wow. So yeah, I think watching the analytics really well, and then just being persistent, and then being scrappy. So we had some book prototypes made. And we have a very active neighborhood Facebook group. It saves Amazon and FedEx hundreds of dollars a year or a month because, you know, people are like, I got this package, and it's very well managed. But anyways, I posted it and I said, hey, if anyone has kids that would like to test our prototypes, I had like 20 people respond. So I spent that afternoon driving around, dropping off books on doorsteps, and then, you know, contacting them and sending them a survey. And that was actually one of the most effective ways of gathering feedback. And so, you know, being persistent and then just experimenting constantly and then getting scrappy, like literally, you know, driving around my neighborhood, dropping off, you know, books so that we can get that feedback and iterate quickly.
Yeah, that's really interesting, particularly it being a digital product and a physical product. I mean, they're printing something out physically. And it almost makes me wonder, like, if the product is doing a really good job and what the parents need, if they're like less apt to fill out a survey online because they're like, this is great. I'm doing what I need to do. Yeah, it's working. But the handing out of the books, that sounds like a really interesting thing. Is that something you want to keep doing, like implementing in the future, of just those same people, hey, we've got a new thing, I'm here, check it out?
Yes. Yeah. So I think there's lots of ways you can do that. You could, even if you have something that's physical, like you could set up at like a farmer's market or find some other watering hole. I'm going to a conference next week, and part of what I plan on doing is cornering a bunch of people on the, you know, on the conference floor and showing them stuff and getting their reaction. Yeah. So, you know, I think you just got to go to where the people are, go to where your target market is. Part of why I'm going to this conference is because there's going to be a lot of teachers there. Yeah. And right now I'm very interested, you know, we talked a minute ago about that's a segment that has come up as using our platform more than we initially anticipated. Yeah. So right now I'm doing customer interviews where I'm saying, how are you using our platform? Why? What can we do to make it better? What kind of printable activities would get you coming back to our site more frequently? And so, yeah, I'm going to run around and do that at a conference as well.
So let's talk a little bit about where the platform's heading.
Okay.
Before we started recording, you mentioned education being kind of beyond what we've already talked about, being like the next phase or frontier of where Beeloo is eventually heading.
Yeah, there's two reasons for that. Like, one comes back to, we think that about 30 or 40% of the people who use our platform are teachers or educators of some kind, not just a parent at home. So that's one reason why. That's probably like the most, you know, besides our initial target market of parents, that's like the biggest segment that we have, that we've been able to identify. But then the second reason is from talking to parents and them saying, I want more educational content.
Yeah.
So if you think of the Venn diagram of, printable activities and worksheets that parents would want and that teachers would want, we're finding out there's a lot more overlap than we would have predicted. So there's something called the summer slump. In the US, where most kids are off for the summer, it can mean that they digress a little bit in terms of their learning because they're not practicing the skills that they've been, learning all summer or all school year. And so a lot of parents, even my wife and I, we've been, okay, how can we keep the kids engaged and have them kind of keeping those skills sharp? And so you imagine content like a math practice worksheet or a writing prompt. These are all things that our technology can create really well. And so that's what we're in the process of doing, is understanding what educators need so that we can adapt. We also think that part of that is it's a clear market opportunity.
Yeah.
The scale that you need to get to sell like individual subscriptions to parents is massive.
Yeah.
And we've had strong organic growth, but we haven't raised money intentionally yet. And we're not 100% sure if we're going to raise money. But with the education market, there's kind of more established norms around what you pay for and curriculum. And so we think that might be a better, long-term, more sustainable market. I think no matter what direction we go, we're going to continue the B2C model as well. Sure. Because part of it goes back to our mission, which is we want to give parents more options, teachers more options. And so we're going to we always plan on giving, some of our content away for free because it also helps our business grow, but also because that's just what we believe in. We want to make it easier. So yeah, I'm really excited about the potential for education. I'm not an educator or I haven't been an educator, but my mother was, my sister-in-law, lots of people around me. And a big believer in education. So
that's really neat. I know there's a lot of companies out there that have missions to, promote STEM and skills like coding, things that are more newer skills that are very much applicable in the workplace today and will be in the future. I'm wondering how have you explored things like that, like new emerging types of technologies, and how you might be able to take that and make it like a physical kind of learning.
Yeah. Well, so when it comes to STEM, I mean, that's definitely a category that we're investigating right now of like, okay, what else can we do? And, math, like anything math related puts you in that category. Yeah. But a lot of how we've been using some of these newer technologies like artificial intelligence has been to help us create printable activities at a lower cost and more options and more variety and more fun and engaging. And so as we create more educational content, AI is going to help us do that for sure. But in terms of actually like teaching kids AI on paper or something is not something that we've figured out how to do. Yeah. I get a fair amount of people that say, hey, well, I thought about turning some of this stuff into like an online, instead of printing it out, like we just do it online, whether it's like a coloring sheet or some of our other things, you could turn it into like a digital product. But for right now, we just, the pull towards online is so strong. Yeah. And the research is so clear that too much screen time is not good for kids or adults, actually. Yeah. But kids are, they're so young and impressionable that we're really trying to focus our energy on, like, how can we use this technology to have them spend less time on technology? Yeah. Because even, in elementary school, they have math games that kids play on their Chromebooks or whatever, and those are great. But even if it's a math game, if it's too much time on a screen, it's still a screen, right? And so I think when you do have screen time, you want to have as much good educational outcomes as possible. Yeah. But there's a lot that's good about like old fashioned. So how can we, make what we print out just so fun and engaging and so many options that the kids aren't asking for screens and the parents can, not have to worry about, or the teachers worry about it and feel good about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really admirable approach, given it would be really easy to, make everything digital and still have like printables But I mean, the core of it is keeping kids, like, not keeping them off, but giving them less screen time.
Yeah.
And just based on the studies and what it, what it really does to your brain being on a screen for extended periods of time.
Yeah.
One of my last questions is, what are you excited about Beeloo and about where it's headed in the next year to 2 years? There's a lot happening around us in technology right now.
Right.
But what are you particularly excited about?
Yeah, I think I'd sum it up with what is going to now be possible with generative AI that wasn't possible. Mm-hmm. So my co-founder and I, we started almost a year ago, before the majority of the world cared about AI. And so we had started building, and when ChatGPT came out, I remember we were doing a Zoom call together, and we're like, oh, this is cool. We were testing some stuff, and then he's like, okay, well, let's see if we can have it build us a crossword puzzle, which is complex. Like, a crossword puzzle is complex. And, we played around with the prompts, but at some point it started creating the crossword puzzles.
Wow.
And it drastically changed the direction that we started heading with Beeloo, because we now realized, we can create thousands of crossword puzzles. We can create thousands of, list goes on and on. Mm-hmm. And even more so as we've tapped into, the APIs for a lot of these new AI tools, mm-hmm. and incorporated imagery from a lot of these new AI tools. So to me, I think what I'm most excited about is, there's most companies are going to use AI to try to get you to spend more time on your computer, right? And I think what we're doing is different and unique, and what gets us excited is that we're going to be using these technologies to help kids spend less time, but also it being fun and engaging and have great educational outcomes. So I think like AI combined with our focus on education is what really gets me excited and makes me, a smile on my face every day when I wake up to start working on this, because like these technologies work for us, but we always forget it. They happen so fast, and they push us, and they can be so, they can push us in so many directions that sometimes that we forget. It's like, no, like the reason why we create these technologies is to have the outcomes that we want. And so as a parent or as a teacher, whoever, you gotta think, well, what do I want? Like, what am I trying to do?
Yeah.
And how can we use the technology to help me do that versus, the technology can do this. I mean, a lot of times it's like the tail is wagging the dog when it comes to technology. And I'm seeing that a ton with AI. But I've seen also, obviously we're trying to do that, but I've seen a handful of other AI companies that are being very thoughtful about how they engage with kids and how it can be used to help have the outcomes with children that parents and teachers and educators would all agree are what we want to have happen. So,
yeah, it's an exciting time. I mean, there's so much in front of us that we don't even know.
I know.
And I think what I've heard just from talking to you just now is you're not approaching this as some kind of purist where it's like anti-technology, anti-screens. It's like, why don't we use the technology for something that we want, which is just kids being on screens less and making it more fun for them.
Yes.
And I think that's a really cool mission. So if folks wanted to learn more about Beeloo or get in contact with you or your co-founder, or just kind of follow along with the journey, what's the best way to do that? Go
to Beeloo.com, test it out. I mean, we talked about feedback on the show. I love all and any feedback or request of, I want a superhero theme, or what, could you do a theme around the state of Tennessee? There's already one for the state of North Carolina. Go to the website. You can create an account and then or sign up for our email list. And people can contact me directly. My email is my name, derek.pando@beeloo.com. And we're always looking to connect with like-minded people and to get feedback and try to improve it and keep trying to make it something that's useful.
Awesome. Well, Derek, thank you so much for your time today.
No, thank you for having me.